Welcome to the Healthcare Provider Happy Hour. This is a safe space where we invite healthcare providers to unapologetically be themselves after the working day. My name is Jennifer George, and each week I will connect you with guests and stories that will help transform your stress to success and fulfillment. Are you with me? Grab your drink of choice and let's chat. Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthcare Provider Happy Hour. I'm your host, Jennifer George, and I'm joining you this evening with a cup of tea. I want to chat with you today about challenging patient care interactions and situations. You know, this is more common than not in healthcare. Okay, I would say that, almost half of my patient care interactions are pretty complex, can be complicated at times. And it doesn't mean that it's negative, it's just challenging for various reasons, okay? And we've all experienced this on some level, but only when we take this seriously, only when we take the communication piece of this seriously and draw awareness to it, only then can it get better. And not only that, only then can you start to feel better and more confident and more reassuring during these interactions, as opposed to being more anxious over them or overwhelmed. Because, we have to expect this. This is almost a form of conflict, right? And if you read my book, Communication is Care, one of the chapters I talk about is preventing unnecessary conflict. And unnecessary conflict are things like complicated patient care interactions that are not super complicated, but have like minor complications. Like let's say it's like a scheduling issue or something like that. And if not addressed or not invalidated or brought attention to, can turn into a much bigger web of concern. So that's the point of this podcast, is to help you navigate through those challenging patient care situations and interactions with greater ease, so that they don't manifest into a greater conflict either for you internally, okay, meaning like anxiety, staying up at night, not being able to sleep over it, things like that, and externally. So if it involves other members of the team, for example, or you and your patient, for example, things like that. Okay. So one of the things that I like to confirm when I'm with a patient and there is an interaction that's a little bit uneasy is I like to confirm what the patient already knows about their situation. I often find that that's part of it, is that patients from a medical standpoint don't really know the full background of what's going on medically, because they haven't been fully informed about it. And if that's the situation, you want to connect them with the person or the professional who is most responsible for that. Okay, so whether it's a follow-up with a physician or a follow-up with a specialist or a follow-up like with a LIN coordinator or something like that, a home care coordinator, whatever it might be, you want to ensure that what you know is what your patient knows. Because sometimes those tense situations just come from a lack of being fully informed and a lack of understanding of what's really going on. Second, and I've talked about this a lot, is being empathetic. Okay, so, from the get-go, you're already preparing yourself to be more empathetic. And empathy is a very sensationalized word right now. It's a very controversial word right now. But in healthcare, I feel like it holds true, and it always will. I believe it's what connects us human to human, patient to provider. And being empathetic is showing and demonstrating to your patient that you're trying to understand their A, perspective of what's going on, and B, their emotions. Okay, their emotions. We have to realize that what's going on within a patient is quite life changing, right? They could be grieving. They could have experienced trauma through this situation. There's a lot of emotional factors that are deep beneath the surface that patients are expressing in some way, shape, or form through their emotions. And us validating that goes a long way. Okay. So in these situations, empathy can be very contagious in a way, right? We can become empathetic very quickly. And one of the ways that we demonstrate empathy sometimes is by mirroring somebody's emotions or gestures. But in this situation, what you want to do is be more mindful and present. And if you see that a patient is very uneasy, very anxious, very overwhelmed, for example, you don't want to adopt those same emotions, right? Because that's not going to make the situation better, and it's definitely not going to make you feel better at the end of it. Okay, so what you want to do, part of being empathetic, is choosing your emotions and your perspectives and solutions in a compassionate way so that it helps your patient, right? So it's basically saying, what does my patient need right now based on what I know of how they feel and of what they see or what they think of the situation that's happening right now. Okay, so, if you have a patient that's super heightened in anxiety, you want to be more relaxed, more open. You want to be at their level, even physically, and not towering over them if they're in a bed or if they're in a wheelchair, for example, okay? And you want to slow that pace down, essentially. Sometimes when patients are anxious or they feel like they're not getting anywhere, sometimes that puts pressure on us as providers. And I know I used to feel this way in practice, that I had to over-deliver. And by over-delivering, I felt like I was just doing a lot more. But doing a lot more doesn't necessarily mean, doesn't necessarily help the situation. In fact, it can add more overwhelm. So what I've learned to do over the years is actually slow the pace down and do less and pause more in my interactions, and also listen more as much as I possibly can. I try to take in a lot more. And I feel like this in some way is releasing for a patient, but it also again helps to validate what they're going through, because you're not challenging their emotions. You're just accepting them for who they are, how they feel, without judgment. And they just will start to feel safe in that situation. You also want to tailor your communication to the needs of your patient. And I know this is talked about a lot. I know for some it seems simple, but it's actually not simple. I actually find words like using layman's terms or dumbing things down, I find that quite discriminatory. So I don't like to say those things. That's not what I mean when I say tailored communication. Tailoring communication comes from a place of being empathetic and understanding what your patient already knows, and then tailoring your communication around that. And it's okay to rephrase things over and over and over again. That's kind of how we get better at this. Okay, so tailoring communication isn't just something you're expected to know in every interaction right off the bat. That's not the situation. It's that you're trying to constantly rephrase things in such a way that a patient understands it clearly for them, right? How many times have you chatted with somebody or chatted with a friend, offered advice, and it's the same advice over and over. You're saying the same thing over and over, but somebody else says it in a different way, and it suddenly becomes more clear to them, right? It's something like that if you think about it. Another thing you want to consider is being transparent and offering hope, okay? Being transparent is basically being truthful of where you see things right now. So in my practice, I'm very mindful of staying present. And when I'm having discussions about progress and updates and things like that, I'm very present to where the patient is at right now. Okay, so I'm not saying where they're going to be because I don't know the future. And I think as healthcare professionals, we can get caught up in that. And it's not for us to say where a patient's going to be in the future, unless they're asking you for that information directly. Even then, it wouldn't be typically within my scope too in those situations. I would be referring to a physician likely. But I never take hope off of the table, never, because I can't predict the future. I can't. So all I can do is offer perspective on where they're at now based on what I see and make recommendations based on that. And what I do here is by offering hope, what you're doing is offering ways for your patient to be more comfortable, to be more successive in their goals, like breaking down maybe a big goal that they have into very, very small and progressive goals, and maintaining their status and preventing further decline. That's often a part of it as well. Okay, so offering a better quality of life overall. And the other thing too, and kind of like I mentioned here about being transparent, is ensuring that the patient understands that they're a part of the care plan, that they're a part of the decision making. And patients can't fully be a part of that if they don't really know what's going on. So back to the very first thing I said. And then that might warrant, like I mentioned, a follow-up or a conference or something along those lines. Be very mindful of the fact that regardless of whatever sector you work in, that there's sometimes, I wouldn't say sometimes, that there is most of the time another provider that's involved in that plan of care that you can refer to or collaborate with, communicate with in some way, shape, or form. So those are my main tips for helping you to go into patient care interactions with greater ease, interactions that might prove to be challenging to you. And if you are feeling this way, I applaud you. I applaud you because you are aware of it. That's what makes you a great provider, is the fact that you want to be better, right? You want to offer better service. You want to be there for your patient in the best way possible, despite the challenges that are in front of you, okay? I think far too often and over the years, what we've done when it comes to communication is ignore it, disregard it, and not draw any attention to it. But the reality is it's the communication that creates a lot of times complexity in these interactions. It's the root of it, essentially. So by improving your presence, by improving your ability to empathize, offer compassionate solutions, slow the pace down, be transparent, offer hope, and tailor communication according to your patient's needs and understanding. Doing a combination of all of those things can help you to go through that situation with greater ease and also walk away from it as well with greater ease and hopefully not so much anxiety as when you first went into it. So let me know what you guys think. If you liked this podcast, tag me on Instagram, send me a screenshot. I will share it and do the same. If you want more practical guidance, check out my book, Communication is Care. It's in the show notes. It's available basically on any platform. And you can check it out even on Amazon. You can get a free inside edition reading where they give you basically like the first chapter or two of the book, but you just have to select the Kindle edition for that. It's called Look Inside. That's the feature if you want to check it out there. And until we chat next time, guys, remember to stay well, stay happy. See you next time. So if you guys like this podcast, please subscribe and leave an honest review. Your feedback means everything to me. Your reviews are what moves this podcast forward, and I always appreciate receiving them. If you want to get a hold of me directly, reach out to me on social media. My handles are in the show notes, and you can always subscribe to my weekly newsletters at jennifergeorge.co so that we can stay connected. So until next time, thank you guys so much again for your ongoing support.